I come in peace. I didn't bring artillery, but I'm pleading with you with tears in my eyes. If you with me, I'll kill you all. Now, that's retired Marine General James Mattis giving a memorable warning to his Iraqi counterparts back when he was chief of U.S. Central Command. And the rumor is he might just be Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. God, I love this story. I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is The Right Angle on picking the right man for one of America's most demanding jobs, brought to you by the paying members of BillWhittle.com. Bill, I want to start with you this time. I spent last night collecting my favorite Mattisisms from Mad Dog Madison, who is considered by retired Marine Colonel Gary Anderson to be the finest combat leader we've produced since Korea, and that's a quote. Mattis had a bit of advice for his officers in Iraq. He told them, be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everybody you meet. Bill? Does this guy remind you of anybody? Somebody you might have talked about on this show before?
Well, as a matter of fact, thanks for teeing it up. He reminds me quite a bit of Curtis LeMay, former Strategic Air Command general, the guy who basically invented the Strategic Air Command. And for those of you that haven't heard the story, LeMay apparently was interviewed by a liberal reporter, and the Strategic Air Command's motto was a mailed fist holding a lightning bolt, and below that it said, peace is our profession. And this liberal reporter said to LeMay, General, surely you can't be unaware of the hypocrisy of this. You've got hundreds, if not thousands, of nuclear weapons. How can you possibly say peace is your profession? And LeMay said, well, peace is our profession. War is just something we do for kicks. And liberals hear this and their head explodes. Their heads come off because, see, they think it's dangerous. They think it's dangerous to present a front of strength and capability. But that's why they're not commanding battalions in combat, because they don't understand anything about anything. As Ronald Reagan said, it's not that they're stupid, it's just pretty much everything they know is just not true. When you are dealing with adversaries in the world, and this is the job of the Defense Department, it's not the job of the State Department, this is the job of the Defense Department. What you want, I think, is you want to give the impression, if it were my country to run as president, I would want my Defense Department chairman to be seen as a snarling mad dog who is literally pulling the chains as hard as he could to bite the throats out of everybody who looked at us funny. And only I, through my position as elected representative as President of the United States, am able to withhold this guy with all of my strength. So please don't make it harder for me than it has to be to hold on to this barking wolf. That's precisely what you want. And, it always comes back to the classics, to Sun Tzu and Clausewitz and Machiavelli. And Machiavelli said, if you have a choice, speaking about politics, he was talking about power politics. He said, it's nice to be loved and it's nice to be feared, but if you have to pick one of these, pick being feared. And we used to be loved and feared, and then we were feared. And now with Barack Obama, we're neither loved nor feared. So one thing at a time. I'll summarize this in one final statement, Steve. We need to have somebody whose position is, I'm not so afraid of going to war with Iran. I want Iran to be afraid of going to war with us. You see, that's what I want. And once you get to that mindset, you'd be amazed what can happen diplomatically over in the State Department.
Well, Bill, let me give you a follow-up, because I want to look at not just the external effect that Mattis might have, but also the internal effect on our armed forces. Because, we've lost a lot of warfighters over the last 8 years. The actual tough guys who have either been drummed out of the service or have left in frustration. And this is at every rank in every branch. Do you think having a guy like Mattis at the top could bring some of that spirit back to our armed forces?
It had better. Yeah. Categorically, it will. Categorically, it will. The appointment of somebody like Mattis, I don't know if there's anybody like Mattis. The appointment of Mattis as Defense Department Secretary would be assigned to all of the warfighters who, over the last 8 years, the actual warriors, have been forced out of the armed services, not because they were simply dismissed by the president. It's not that simple. They're much more subtle than that. Over the last 8 years, we've watched policies come down as dictates from the commander-in-chief that made life in the military more and more and more unbearable for actual warfighters with codes of honor and integrity. When I talked to a commander of a Green Beret unit, and he was told that he has to ask his men if they have firearms at home, and if so, how many and what kind. He says, I will not obey that order. I just will not. we ought to have a guy like Matt that's there to bring new people in. And I've said before, and I'd like to just say one more time, if I was Donald Trump, I would say, this is our new Department of Defense. This is our new Defense Secretary. If you're a war fighter and a warrior that felt you had to leave the military over the last 8 years, please come back, bring that priceless experience that you've earned in 2 theaters, and we will pay you your previous pay grade for the time you were gone. We will consider it all to be back pay and a sabbatical in the civilian world. And I can't think of a better way to spend defense money than that.
It's personnel. It all comes down to that. I want to talk about the softer side of Mattis. He said during a speech at the Marine Corps University Foundation's award dinner a couple of years ago, this is a quote, "It's all the more important today that we hold to our precious legacy of ferocious, ethical combat performance." Now, it can't be said often enough, especially during a presidential transition period, but personnel is policy. So, Scott, when you hear a line like that from Mattis, do you think that the Mad Dog could actually be a sort of a counterweight to some of Trump's more aggressive campaign promises about things like issuing illegal orders, targeting civilians, and all the rest?
Yeah, and frankly, he sounds like somebody who could stand up to Donald Trump. It doesn't seem like Donald Trump has met many of those people in his life. So it would be good, and as we record this right now, we don't know for sure if this guy is going to be appointed. Yeah. But I think we can talk in general principle about the concept of getting a guy like this because somebody needs to be able to stand up to him when it comes to matters of war and peace and be able to speak clearly and with authority on those matters and be able to say, Mr. President, it is possible to do that, but it is wrong, and I will not. And we need to have that kind of person. And by the way, it not only strikes fear into the hearts of our enemies to have somebody who's got that kind of experience and boldness, but it also emboldens our friends and the oppressed around the world who are counting on us, and we have let them down. And immediately when you started talking about him, all I could think of was the revolution in the streets of Iran and a sniper's bullet in the throat of Neda Sultan, and she's lying there on her back, bleeding out through her nose, looking plaintively at the camera, and we were not there. And the mullahs in Iran knew that there was no risk whatsoever in doing that. In fact, they could turn around and sit down at the table and shake hands and smoke the hookah with some of our Secretary of State staff and sign a deal that benefits only them. We need to be there for our friends. Our friends need to know that American power is not only mighty, but it is good.
Well, Scott, you talk about that. The other part of the rumor mill is that Mitt Romney is in the running for Secretary of State, and that's another person who not only can stand up to Trump, but has stood up to you. Do you see maybe a better side of Trump than you saw during the campaign, where he's actually willing to put together a real cabinet of rivals?
Yeah, if what is being noised about actually comes to pass, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good step. It's a step in the right direction to bring in Romney anyway and to talk to him. But to a certain extent, that can be written off as Trump really not taking the whole game seriously anyway. I mean, it's like after the election going, oh, yeah, that woman that I led chants of lock her up about, yeah, I don't really want to pursue that. So... it was just what we do when we're running for office. Where it'll really prove out is if he appoints Mitt Romney either to something like Secretary of State or even Commerce Secretary. I mean, Romney has a global reputation, second to none, because of his work on the Olympics years ago, where he saved something that was going to be a humiliating disaster, not only for the United States, but for the whole community, the global community, so to speak. And he made a great event out of what was a corrupt mess. And I would love to see somebody like that step into the Secretary of State's position and take this corrupt mess of cronies and donors who have been stationed around the world as as rewards for their campaign contributions and upend that whole thing, slim it down as far as making it more efficient, but also send a clear message about American goodness and greatness.
Yeah, I got to tell you, so far I'm loving this Trump transition, but I think we're going to get into that a little more during Bill's segment this week. Listen, folks, Barack Obama went through defense secretaries like Spinal Tap went through drummers, and I swear, I can't remember who any of the old ones were. I can barely remember who the current one is, Cash Barter or whatever his name is. And I think that was on purpose. Obama knows best about all things all the time, and he wasn't about to have an energetic or charismatic or even a very useful defense secretary around. And so with that in mind, let me leave you with one more Mattisism. He said, Marines don't know how to spell the word defeat. And you know what else? Mattis is a retired Marine, not an ex-Marine, as any Marine will tell you. That's right. And it sure would be nice for a change to have a defense secretary who doesn't know how to spell defeat. So, Mr. President-elect Trump, I hope the rumors are true. I hope, just like I do, you see the Mad Dog 2020. And that is The Right Angle on James Mattis, made possible by the paying members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks to them for keeping us on the air, and thanks to you for your time. We'll see you again.
Semper Fi, brothers.